I don't feel like we need to litigate the various reasons as to why Clinton lost. I think there's broad agreement that there's a lot of different factors, and
Right.
and I also think that there's a good argument that things shouldn't have been close enough that any one factor, small factor, could have made the difference, but it did, and certainly I think if according to people like Nate Silver, the James Comey announcement that they were reopening or not reopening or whatever that vague implication of that announcement was about that was taken as like we found new evidence. There's reason to open up the case again on the I don't know the private email server. I guess it was yesterday the warrant that was issued after that announcement 2 days later was brought to light by a FOIA request, and the warrant looks like absolute garbage. Apparently,
Well, that's what the legal experts say, and I mean, this is like across the board. I haven't read anything. Maybe they're out there. I don't read everything that's written, but nonetheless, I've not read any legal experts saying, "Yeah, this is a good warrant." Lots of probable cause there. I mean, it was very strange, and setting aside the implications of whether or not it was the deciding factor in the election, the fact that it happened at all should be deeply,
right?
deeply concerning to Americans. The fact, even if Clinton had won, this should have been deeply, deeply concerning to all Americans. This was a long-standing norm within the law enforcement community, specifically with the FBI and the Department of Justice. In fact, we had a scandal back during the Bush administration about U.S. attorneys who were fired for refusing to do what Comey did. And the Bush administration fired them. There was a huge scandal. I'm sure everybody remembers that, about that. That was the issue, was that the Bush administration wanted U.S. attorneys to interfere in elections. And they refused to do it and were fired for doing it. And now we had the head of the FBI, James Comey, a man who, I wrote about at the time, and a lot of people did, wondering what in the world Barack Obama was thinking in appointing him, because he had been, despite his own sort of self-aggrandizing narrative about how he saved the day back in the Bush administration, which was bunk as well.
I should just remind people what you're talking about. He was supposedly he supposedly threw himself on John Ashcroft's body, essentially when was it Gonzalez came to attempt to get Ashcroft to sign off on some warrantless wire tap program. We're not quite sure, I think, what exactly it was, but he supposedly threw himself in between the Bush officials and John Ashcroft in the hospital room.
Right. They raced across town. There's a very thrilling story of the hero, James Comey, racing across town to save the Republic. And the truth is that it was just a technical matter. He didn't care that there was warrantless wiretapping. He just wanted the right, T's to be crossed and the right I's to be dotted, because they went ahead and did it.
Right.
They changed their theory about why they could do it, and he was fine with that. So, his tale, and which he told in very dramatic fashion in a hearing years later. So we all heard about it and went, oh gosh, what a terrific guy James Comey is. But the truth is that he's always been a stalwart Republican partisan, although he claims now that he doesn't vote Republican, which I don't think that means anything. He was the deputy counsel of the Senate Whitewater Committee back in the 90s, Alphonse D'Amato's committee, which was completely out of control, and he was leaking like a sieve to the press. So there was plenty of reason for Obama to be concerned that this guy would be head of the FBI. And it's a 10-year term, and it's incredibly powerful. And the fact that he did this, that he actually interfered, whether he did it for partisan reasons or he did it because he's a clod and didn't understand how, going against the well-established norms in the Justice Department, that you don't do it. Loretta Lynch evidently told him that she didn't think he should do it. or whether or not he knew that his FBI agents were running out of control, which is probably part of it, because Rudy Giuliani was hinting around broadly that they were leaking information. Whether he was trying to cut them off at the pass, there is no excuse. Either he's a terrible manager and can't keep a hold of his agents, or he's too dumb to understand the political implications of what he's doing, or he's a partisan. Either way, he is absolutely guilty of doing something that was monumentally outrageous for anybody in the law enforcement community to do, and he is going to go down in history as somebody. Harry Reid says he, calls him J. Edgar Hoover. So there you go.
Well, we'll see about that because, I guess a lot of that legacy will be determined by Trump's actions, right? Where he places him. That may be, he may have more opportunity to do stuff like that. And let me just add two things. One is that one of my theories too as to why he did it may have been that he was just afraid of going in front of these Republican-controlled committees afterwards, and who could theoretically have slashed his funding and whatnot. I mean, I think they could have made his life a living hell, and maybe he thought it wouldn't have that implication on the election. But again, you're in the same place. This is a guy like you don't want this guy in charge of anything. And just to reiterate the policy, I spoke to a good friend of mine who was a former head of a public corruption division of a USA's office. And he said that when he first joined the Department of Justice, wasn't working in Washington, they had, as a rookie or whatever they call them, Comey actually gave a talk to them about the most important thing is that we have is our integrity and that we are seen as not getting involved specifically in elections, right? Because this is the public corruption thing. And he said, you never, ever, ever, it is just like, it is a blanket binary policy. If you are literally like 4 or 5 or 6 months out at least of an election, you just don't do it. You don't make any investigation public. You don't bring any charges, even if it's clear. You just don't do it because it is the most important thing is that you're not, like, the paramount is that you're not interfering with elections or seen to be. And this was about as naked of an interference with an election as you could possibly get, which is scary because, what won't he do at that point? Hey, it's Sam Cedar. Why don't you subscribe to this channel? You can do so right over here. Subscribe.